She didn't believe in coincidences until that evening. Claire, a quiet dreamer with stories in her head and a heart full of unanswered questions, sat tucked away in the corner of the old city library. As the world outside roared with life, she sought solace in the stillness of books, hiding from the loneliness that seemed to define her days. Then, it happened. A small, handwritten note slipped from her journal as she adjusted her seat. It fluttered to the ground, landing silently near a pair of worn leather boots. A stranger bent down to pick it up. "Seems like this belongs to you," he said, his voice steady, curious. Claire looked up, startled. He didn't fit the library's quiet ambience, dark leather jacket, unruly hair, a mischievous smile. Her eyes darted to the note in his hand. She had written it in a moment of vulnerability. "If only someone saw me for who I truly am." She snatched it back, cheeks flushed. "Thank you," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. "Maybe," he said, leaning slightly closer. "It's good someone did." His name was Ethan, and he wasn't supposed to be there. Libraries weren't his thing. He was searching for a book his late grandfather had loved, a sentimental errand he wasn't even sure why he'd taken on. Yet, here he was, standing in front of this stranger with the kind of intensity that made Claire feel both seen and exposed. Their conversation started hesitantly, like strangers testing the waters. But soon, it flowed natural, effortless. She told him about her love for stories and her fear of sharing her own. He told her about his adventures, the reckless motorcycle rides, and the places he'd been chasing something he couldn't quite name. Hours slipped by as they wandered through aisles, their voices mingling with the rustle of turning pages. As the library's closing announcement echoed, they stood before a worn copy of Pride and Prejudice. Ethan ran his fingers along its spine, then glanced at her. "Ever feel like books know exactly when to find you?" he asked. "Every day," she replied with a faint smile. Before they parted, Ethan pulled out a notebook from his jacket. Scribbling something on a blank page, he handed it to her. "I know you don't share your stories, but maybe start with this one," he said, his grin playful yet sincere. Claire watched him leave, clutching the notebook, her mind racing. That night, in the quiet of her room, Claire opened the notebook. Inside, scrawled in uneven handwriting, was a simple yet profound message. "You've been seen, Claire. Don't hide anymore. Meet me here tomorrow at p.m., and maybe we can start writing a story of our own." Her breath caught. For a moment, the walls she had built around herself seemed to crumble. Sometimes the moments that change our lives don't shout. They whisper just loud enough to remind us we're not invisible.